This is the Unit 5 study guide for retesting. Looking at number 1. Number 1 says evaluate when x equals -3, so I'm going to substitute a -3 in there. Excuse me. This 16. So if you remember the rule for negative powers, that tells me negative power tells me that I really have that value. Now the -3 is only on the 2. I have that value in the denominator. 2 to the third is not 6, it's 8. And the answer is 2. So I'm going to evaluate without negative exponents. So this turns out to be 1 over 8 to the first. 12 to the -2 is 1 over 12 squared, which is 144. And down here, now if the power is negative in the denominator, that goes to the numerator, and that's 9. The next one, they want to know which expressions are equivalent to 1. Well, anything to the 0 power is 1, so that's 1. Okay. Over here, these would flip, so this would give me 3 to the second all over 2 to the third, and that's 9 to the 8th. That's not 1. 2 to the 0 is 1, so that equals 1. So this one and this one turn into 1. Okay. What are reasonable equations? That's a bit of a vague term, but you're looking for a couple of important things. The big thing you want to realize is this is an exponential equation, so the power has to have the variable. This has a positive slope and a negative slope. So I could say something like this is y equals 2 to the x, and I could say this is a positive slope. Just real quickly, I can see the y-intercept. Okay, so, and over here we have a negative slope. Okay, so remember the value in front of the y is the slope. This is y equals mx plus br, slope-intercept form of an equation. Number 5, where does f of x equal g of x? Now, the main thing you got to remember, when you graph lines or functions, you're looking for a solution, the solution is always where the functions intersect, or where the lines intersect, where they cross. So if I look, they cross right here and they cross right here, and I'm interested in the x value, so down here is x equals -2 and x equals 1. A student invests $400 at 8% interest rate per year. What amount of money will the student have after 2 years and after 5 years? Well, this is what's tricky about this, is if it's increasing the rate, what people are going to do is they're going to say, okay, you can't use a percent, so you got to put that into a decimal. So 8% is equal to 0.08. Well, that would actually decrease me. So what's actually happening here, the interest rate is 1.08 to the x. Okay. So that's the function or the equation I'm going to use. So if it's like 10%, it's going to be 1 and then 0.10. Here, so now they want 2 years, so all I do is say y equals 400 times 1.08 to the 2. If I enter that into my calculator, it's 400 times 1.08 to the second, and that's 466.56. And if I do the same thing to 5 years, that's 587.73. A population of endangered fish decreases exponentially and can be represented by the function f of x equals 1,200 to the 0.93 to the x. What is the percent of rate of decay? So if you remember it, here's our rate. So there's always our initial amount and the rate and then the exponential variable. So the decay would be 0.93. In terms of percent, it would be 93%. Okay. Well, sorry, hold on. It'd be 93%. But where you got that from, sorry, was you do the 0.93, but you have to do minus 1. Sorry, minus 1. So the actual decay rate is 0.07. 0.07. All right, tell if these have one solution, no solution, or infinitely many. And so this one has 1 because there is a power I can put on 8 to get me to 64. So there's 1 right there. This one has none because if I put a negative power, all that's going to do is give me a fraction. So I cannot get to a negative answer. If I do this one here, remembering that how do you solve an exponential equation is you make the bases of the equation the same. So I can turn 49 into 7 to the 2, and there's already an x. So you see I have the same thing on both sides. So what that means is, since I have the same thing on both sides, it's any variable of x will work. So that's infinitely many right there. Okay. And D, same there. If I start to solve this, I can make that work, and this would be one solution. Okay. Number 9, where do I see the mistake? So the first thing they said is, okay, so 3 to the 7th is 2,186, so that's fine. So the reason it's negative because they moved it up, so that works. And then they got them both set to bases of 3, so you should have set this equal to that, and they didn't because look, that's a negative, that's a positive 7. It should be a negative 7, so step 2 is incorrect. Number 10, the following equation, negative 2 to the x equals 10, was graphed by setting both equations equal to y. What is the value of x? So what they did was they graphed this. Y equals negative 2 to the x, and y equals 10. Okay. And if you remember from the question earlier, I think it was question 5, that you're looking for where the lines cross. And so if you look here, this exponential doesn't cross this x-axis, and here's the 10. So if you look, they're not going to cross. And so since these two equations don't cross, there is no solution. No solution. Alright, so now we're going to write the explicit formula for a geometric series. Okay, so if you remember, this is where we're going to find the r. And the rule for this is a sub n equals a sub 1 r to the n minus 1. A sub n is the first term, so in this case it would be 4. R is what you multiply the first term by to get to the next one. And you always find that by doing right over left, or a sub 2 over a sub 1. So I did 8 over 4. The right term over the left term, that's 2. So that's my r value. Okay, that's r. A sub 1 is 4, and I just plug those into the formula right here. So I get a sub n equals 4 times 2 to the n minus 1. And how this works is if I want to find any particular term, like 16 is the third term, if I plug in a 3 right here, I'll get 16 for this. If I want to find, I plug in a 4, I'd work it out, and I'd get 32. Okay. Doing the same thing for number, for the second part of this question. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the r value. So I do the right term over the left term. It doesn't matter which two you pick. And that comes out to 1/3. So that's my r value. A sub 1 is the first term. That's 54. Okay. So that was my answer, the first part. And so this one's going to be a sub n equals the first term times the common ratio, which is 1/3 to the n minus 1.